What are you doing? What are you doing?
Welcome to MsMojo. What's in a name? That which we call the ultimate love story has a lot more going on beyond the balcony scene. Today we're exploring how the most famous play by the world's most famous writer has been misrepresented.
How could this happen? We started out like Romeo and Juliet, but it ended up in tragedy.
Fun fact, did you know that the text of Shakespeare's 1597 tragedy Romeo and Juliet contains no mention of a balcony? In fact, the first use of the word balcony doesn't even show up in speech usage until more than 20 years later.
Okay, who built the balcony?
Okay, in retrospect, it might have been foolish of me to consider Pace the nail-silent cousin, but you live, you learn.
The choice to stage Act 2, Scene 2 around this famous architectural feature isn't a bad one by any means. The big spatial divide between the besotted pair is a metaphor for the challenges separating them, yada yada yada.
How can you stay there? Tell me, and wherefore? The orchard walls are high and hard to climb, and the place death. Considering who thou art, if any of my kinsmen find thee here.
Effective as it is, it's probably not what Shakespeare envisioned. The fact that it is the most indelible image of the play in collective consciousness, though, that makes it an excellent signifier for the way we've collectively decided to misinterpret it.
And what kind of statement would we be making today if we were to emulate such a paradigmatic transformation? Exactly.
The names Romeo and Juliet instantly conjure up a specific image, one of passionate, pure, undying love.
Eyes, look your last. Arms, take your last embrace.
Okay, maybe not undying, but that's what gives the story its potency, right? Two young people who fall instantly and deeply in love.
I am too fond, and therefore thou mayest think my haviour light, but trust me, gentlemen, I'll prove more true than those that have more cunning to be strange.
They're so deep that the very thought of having to be without one another eventually causes each to take their own life. So that's the point of the play, right? The power of love and the tragedy of its denial.
Oh God, I have an ill-divining soul. Methinks I see thee now thou art so low as one dead in the bottom of a tomb. Either my eyesight fails or thou look'st pale.
And trust me, love, in my eyes, so do you.
Most people read Romeo and Juliet for the first time in high school, but were introduced to the material way before then. In fact, most of us in the modern day and age probably got our first dose of it in our cartoons.
Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? Herefore I ought.
As we get older, we continue to see this play referenced in the shows we watch. Anyone growing up outside the English-speaking world would be forgiven for assuming that performing in Romeo and Juliet is required to finish school here.
Yes, and in a few minor minutes, I shall seduce the audience with my Romeo and lay a kiss upon my Juliet.
An endless parade of teen and tween characters take on these roles, almost always meant to parallel some plotline about a crush, or give two characters an excuse to lock lips. And no scene is more often recreated than the balcony scene. Years before reading or seeing Romeo and Juliet in full, this one piece, arguably the most romantic scene in the show, creates our framework to understand it. If this is the most popular part of Romeo and Juliet, our young minds reason, it follows that it must be a love story first and foremost.
But trust my mom to turn one of the world's great love stories into a cautionary tale of what happens when children disobey their parents.
Sorry to go against our girl Lane Kim, but her mom's reading on this is closer to correct. Kind of. It is indeed a cautionary tale, but the parents don't come off great either.
You are to blame, my lord, to rate us so.
And why, my lady Wisdom? Hold your tongue! Good Prudence, matter with your gossip soul!
I speak no treason!
You failed to
May not one speak?
You mumbling fool!
For anyone in need of a refresher, Romeo and Juliet is the story of Romeo Montague and Juliet Capulet, two star-crossed young Italian nobles whose families have split the city of Verona with their ongoing feud. One night, Romeo gatecrashes a Capulet party, and he and Juliet are smitten at first sight.
Did my heart love till now? Forswear its sight, for I never saw true beauty till this night.
After knowing each other for less than a day, they decide to marry in secret, aware that their families would never approve of a match between them. When Romeo's best friend Mercutio is killed by Juliet's cousin Tybalt, Romeo, in his grief and rage, accidentally kills Tybalt in turn.
Be gone. The citizens are up and Tybalt slain. Stand not amazed. The prince will doom thee death if thou art taken. Hence, be gone. Away.
Oh! I am Fortune's fool!
Why dost thou stay?
He flees Verona, while Juliet is left to escape the suitable marriage her parents have arranged for her. Following some questionable advice from her priest, she fakes her own death, planning for Romeo to then come and spirit her away. Except the details get garbled on the way to Romeo, and he returns home believing she has actually died.
Never from this palace of dim night depart again. Here will I remain, with worms that are thy chambermaids. Oh, God.
In her tomb, he takes his own life, and Juliet awakens, only to then follow his lead. Their bodies are discovered by their devastated families, and the play ends on a subdued note with most of its major players dead.
For never was a story of more woe than this of Juliet and her Romeo.
But MsMojo, we hear you say, that still sounds like a tragic love story. Well, it is definitely a tragedy. And the love story matters, for sure. But when you expand the scope and look at the whole show instead of just that balcony scene, it's clearer that Romeo and Juliet isn't about love so much as passion. Or, to put an even finer point on it, what happens when we let passion, as in intense, irrational emotion, drive our actions?
Have courage, man. The wound cannot be much.
No. 'Tis not so deep as a well, nor so wide as a church door. But 'tis enough. 'Twill serve.
Not to twist the knife in Mercutio here, but he's a prime example of what we're talking about. For most of the show, Mercutio's a good hang.
Romeo, we must have you dance.
Not I, believe me. You have dancing shoes with nimble soles. I have a soul of lead.
You are a lover. Borrow Cupid's wings and soar with them above a common bound.
This guy is charming, witty, fun, but he's also impulsive to a fault. This becomes a fatal flaw when he runs afoul of Tybalt Capulet.
Oh, calm, dishonorable, vile submission!
No, Mercutio, no!
Leave me! Tybalt! You rat catcher!
What wouldst thou have with me?
Good king of cats, nothing but one of your 9 lives that I mean to make bold withal.
Tybalt is characterized by two things: his skill with a sword and his hair trigger aggression. Already spoiling for a confrontation with Romeo, his behavior goads Mercutio into a fight instead. Neither consider the ramifications of a duel between them, and they both die as a result of their pride, temper, and recklessness. Worse than just paying the price on an individual level, though, their actions ripple out to affect their community.
A plague of both your houses! They've made worms meat of me! I have it, and soundly too! Your houses!
That brings us back to the titular duo. Of course, they are obviously touched by the deaths of Tybalt and Mercutio. Romeo goes from trying to make peace with Tybalt at the beginning of a scene to giving in to senseless rage and murdering him by the end of it. However, Romeo proves from the start of the play that he was always a creature of passion, perhaps more than any other character.
I defy you, stars!
When we first meet the 17-year-old Montague heir, he is lost in the depths of despair over his unrequited love for Juliet's other cousin, Rosalind.
She'll not be hit with Cupid's arrow, nor by the encounter of assailing eyes, nor ope her lap to saints seducing gold.
Then she hath sworn that she will still live chaste?
She hath, and in that sparing makes huge waste.
He only attends the Capulet party out of a desire to see his disinterested crush. When he meets Juliet, something about her flips a switch though, and he turns all that obsessive attention in her direction.
If I profane with my unworthiest hand this holy shrine, my lips, 2 blushing pilgrims ready stand to smooth that rough touch with a tender kiss.
For the rest of the play, Romeo shows himself to be a character totally in service to his wildly swinging emotions. Though he enjoys rapturous highs in his scenes with Juliet, he is quick to give in to darker sentiments like sadness or anger, and tends to act impetuously based on whatever he's feeling most strongly at the moment, which is how he wound up drinking poison in a tomb.
Here's to my love.
His counterpart is not much better, but is more complex than we often get a sense of when we're just given her love scenes. Juliet, who is just shy of 14, is not particularly interested in romance when we meet her.
Tell me, daughter Juliet, how stands your disposition to be married?
It is an honor that I dream not of.
She is told of her arranged marriage to Paris, a relative of the ruling prince, just hours before she first meets Romeo. Though pure physical attraction seems to have played no small part in her initial interest in him, his last name is a problem. Or is it?
Doff thy name! Oh, and for thy name, which is no part of thee, take all myself.
Juliet goes through the motions of bemoaning the divide between her family and Romeo's, but one could attribute at least part of her instant attachment to him as a subconscious rebellious instinct. Stripped of agency by an impending marriage she does not want, Romeo on some level may represent a chance to do something on her own terms, with the added bonus that it would upset her parents, which is the most teenage thing we can imagine.
Anon, good nurse. Sweet Montague, be true. Mother! Stay but a little. I will come again.
Her actions throughout the play all read as an attempt to take control in a world that gives her none. Be it choosing her own romantic partner, planning the most dramatic runaway from home ever, or actually ending her own life, Juliet is driven by a desperate desire to escape her circumstances. And like Romeo, she doesn't pause long enough to master her emotions and think clearly.
I love him.
You love him? You met him Sunday. It's barely Thursday morning. Slow down, crazy. Slow down.
Had either taken a beat or a breath, they might have handled situations differently. Or it might have transpired that what they felt wasn't love at all, but just kind of hyper-intense infatuation you can only really work up to when you're young. And as for the oft-repeated idea that love conquers all, it demonstrably does not.
Alas, my liege, my wife is dead tonight. Grief at my son's exile had stopped her breath. What new woe conspires against mine age?
Look, and thou shalt see.
The reckless passion of two teenagers led to 6 deaths in under a week. The text doesn't really judge either character too harshly, though. The real condemnation falls on their families.
What misadventure is so early up that calls our persons from our morning rest? Bring forth the parties of suspicion.
Throughout the story, we see Verona practically in a state of civil war over the grudge between the two factions. And yet for all the strife, we never learn the root of it.
3 civil brawls, bred of an airy word by thee, old Capulet, and Montague, have thrice disturbed the quiet of our streets. If ever you disturb our streets again, your lives shall pay the forfeit of the peace.
Ultimately, the cause doesn't matter. The bitterness and ego of both Montague and Capulet were allowed to spread like venom, destroying both families.
See what a scourge is laid upon your hates, that heaven finds means to kill your joys with love.
Passion, unchecked by temperance or reason, could only end in scorched earth.
And I for winking at your discords to have lost a brace of kinsmen. All are punished.
That's a very relevant idea in any time or place. So what gives? Why don't we make more of that part of the narrative? Well, the big screen doesn't help.
With love's light wings did I approach these walls. For stony limits cannot hold love out, and what love can do, that dares love attempt.
Unlike TV show appearances, full adaptations of Romeo and Juliet do lay the full story out there for everyone. Franco Zeffirelli's 1968 adaptation was nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards and remains in contention for the definitive film version. The modernized musical retelling, West Side Story, is widely considered to be one of the greatest works of American musical theater and American cinema. And if you grew up in the 90s, Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet definitely made an impact on you.
Thus from my lips by thine my sin is purged.
Then have my lips the sin that they have took?
Sin from my lips? O trespass sweetly urged, give me my sin again.
The problem is that on screen, the scale becomes so grand and sweeping that it's easy to, well, do what the characters do and get carried away with our emotions. Great performances make us invest in the characters. Two good-looking, young people with incredible chemistry get us rooting for their relationship, however ill-conceived it may seem. And when you add stirring music and evocative cinematography, it's hard to keep your wits about you.
Mother craves a word with you.
There's also the fact that love is one of the most unifying experiences of the human race. We all yearn for connection, and most people have experienced the vivid emotional roller coaster of a desperate crush.
What sadness lengthens Romeo's hours?
Not having that which having makes them short.
In love.
Out.
Of love.
Out of her favor where I am in love.
For a lot of us, it doesn't work out. And often those strong feelings lead us to moments we may not be the most proud of. So that part of us that longs for the great romance wants better when we escape into a story.
I dreamed a dream last night.
And so did I.
Well, what was yours?
That dreamers often lie.
We want the fantasy of meant to be and happily ever after, not the reality of being told we should probably learn to moderate our emotional responses and adjust our expectations. Even creators that really know their Shakespeare steer into that sentimentality more often than not.
I want warm light. I want those balls deflated and removed. Did you hear that?
Not a zombie! I have a soul I can feel! Take those cases off!
More recent pieces of media have tried to reframe Romeo and Juliet and restore some of the context that pop culture misses. After centuries of earnest fixation on the love story aspect, it's become almost too easy to satirize.
I'm a grown woman.
I think you're 14 and you're an idiot. You took a roofie from a priest. Look at your life. Look at your choices.
There have been plenty of funny, thoughtful, and interesting attempts to recontextualize the doomed fling between two kids. Yet nothing quite seems to stick like the star-crossed lovers angle.
You're in my head. And you in mine, my sweet. What are we doing? You're married, I'm dead. It can never work, can it? Maybe it can. Like Romeo and Juliet.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Ultimately, we want to believe in a Romeo and Juliet kind of love, and when it doesn't work out for them, we still feel a sense of catharsis in getting to feel big, wild emotions through the safety of somebody else's experience.
Won't thou leave me so unsatisfied?
What satisfaction canst thou have tonight?
The exchange of thy love's faithful vow for mine.
I gave thee mine, for thou didst request it.
Shakespeare knew what he was doing. He understood that, like the Montagues and the Capulets, his larger point wouldn't resonate with his audience unless we were personally invested.
They do see thee, they will murder thee.
Alack, there lies more peril in thine eye than 20 of their swords. Look thou but sweet, and I'm proof against their enmity.
He did his job. It's just on us to remember to look at the whole picture. Marry a little logic with emotion. Practice what he preached. Wow, Shakespeare was pretty smart.
The boy's a genius! I'll make them laugh. I'll make them cry!
But let's be real, Romeo and Juliet 100% would have driven each other nuts in the long term. That's just facts.
I like veal.
Baby cow.
Is it?
Just 7 more hours to go.
What do you think? What other classic stories get muddled between page and screen? Let us know in the comments.
Yes, miss, I have an opinion about everything.
Do you want this in iambic pentameter?
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from MsMojo. And be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.